All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is TSNE's Fiscal Sponsorship Application Info Session. So just to start off, we will introduce the presenters on today's session. So I am Owen Weitzman, the Client Intake Coordinator. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And I've been at TSNE for a little bit more than a year. And now I'll pass it to Lori.
Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to see and hear from all of you. My name is Lori Gordon. I'm the Director of Fiscal Sponsorship, and I've been at TSNE for almost 2 years. And I will pass this on to Sam.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sam Cherie. I'm Associate Counsel for Risk and Compliance here at TSNE, and I've been at TSNE now for almost 2 years.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christine Moore. I'm the Associate Director of Human Resources for Fiscal Sponsorship, and I have been with TSNE about 4 years.
All right, so to get us started, I just wanted to tell you all a little bit about TSNE. So our mission is to strengthen organizations working towards a just and equitable society. And we envision a future where organizations creating a just world have the capacity to lead change. So our fiscal sponsorship work is definitely a part of that. To tell you a little bit about our history, we've been around since 1959. We're actually the oldest fiscal sponsor in the country, and we are currently fiscally sponsoring more than 47 organizations nationwide and managing compensation and benefits for nearly 350 employees. Now, to just set the table a little bit about what this session is and isn't, I'm going to pass it over to Sam.
Hi again, everyone. So today's session is only going to cover fiscal sponsorship at TSNE. So if you're interested in fiscal sponsorship in general, we recommend that you read Fiscal Sponsorship, 6 Ways to Do It Right by Gregory Colvin and Stephanie Petit. It's a really good resource that goes through all the different models of fiscal sponsorship. And just to add to that, TSNE only offers Model A and Model C, but there are, I believe, there's 6 models, as in the title of the book. Also, another resource is the Fiscal Sponsorship Directory, which has, I believe, all fiscal sponsorships nationwide in the directory. So if there are other organizations that might be a better fit, you will be able to find them there. Lastly, and probably most importantly, is that this web session is not legal advice, nor should it be construed as legal advice. TSNE is not a legal aid or provide legal services organization, so we cannot provide any legal advice. So please do not take this as any legal advice.
I'd like to talk a little bit about eligibility. And offer some quick notes for you. So please take a look at our FAQ on our website for full eligibility requirements, along with some of the activities that we can't fiscally sponsor at this time. TSNE currently is not equipped to fiscally sponsor organizations that are in the concept phase. And if you are unsure about your eligibility, please email info@tsne.org. I wanted to take a minute to just explain what I mean by concept phase. So I know there'll be a lot of questions. Usually when organizations come to us in that phase, their initiators or founders have an idea of what may make sense in theory or may have some support or encouragement from the community to become fiscally sponsored. But usually these organizations don't have any paid staff. And we'll talk about later about our requirement about that. There are no funds that are available to them at that point. So they're in the process of trying to figure out how to get funding, how to get the word out, how to involve other members of their group that are working on this brand new concept, reach out and find out about funds available. There's usually no cash reserve to cover periods when there might not be funding commitments available. There's usually no clear idea of who will be on the board. So there might be some people who are involved in the startup of this organization, but they're not necessarily committed board members, advisory board members. And usually there's no plan on how to move the idea past the initial phase into like really looking at operations for the organization, looking at fundraising, and looking at a sustainable staffing plan. So I want to first talk about Model A, fiscal sponsorship. That is the main model that we offer at TSNE. The concept of a team-based approach to fiscal sponsorship is really important. We have individual teams with it set up for each FSO. And these teams are comprised of representatives from each of our functional areas. And the nice thing about it is these teams all, after working with an FSO for a short amount of time, all have a basic level of understanding of what the work and challenges are of the FSO, and they communicate regularly within their group. So you be able to, under this model, you can count on the fact that the various members of this team that work with you as an organization are going to be in communication with one another. The services can be broken up into 4 categories. We have grants and finance management, we have accounting, we have legal and compliance, and we have human resources. Under grants and financial management, we offer a dedicated grants and finance manager and also the support of a finance associate who oversee your funding, associated expenditures, provide assistance with budgeting, grants, and contracts management, and also provide assistance with grant proposal review. Our accounting department does the basic functions that you'd expect of any accounting department in terms of accounts receivable, accounts payable, payroll, but each FSO under this team concept is assigned a fiscal sponsorship accountant or FS accountant who ensures proper processing of all incoming receipts, payments to vendors and contractors, and any other nuances that may occur, questions that may occur that involve any of the relationships, the fiscal relationships that we have with third parties. Under legal and compliance, there's a staff of attorneys and contract administrators who assist in reviewing all of your agreements, including fee-for-service contracts that we receive and vendor or contractor agreements that are issued. The team also administers the state business registration process and ensures on an annual basis that FSO's insurance needs are met in terms of kind of our basic policy or any additional add-ons that an organization may require. And they're really focused on the impact on an organization's financial and legal risk. I mean, that is key to all of this, as we assume under fiscal sponsorship model A, full fiduciary and legal risk. For human resources, each FSO is assigned an HR business partner, similar to like the way the grants and finance manager works, who can help you in recruiting, hiring, retaining, evaluating existing staff, and thinking about the future hiring needs of the organization. In addition, human resources managers manage benefits and compensation. They look, for instance, under compensation, they will be able to look with you at equity within your organization and also comparing positions within your organization to others in similar organizations. They also ensure compliance with the current labor laws and can do so across multiple states when staff are not all located in one place. Model C, TSNE can offer an alternative model of fiscal sponsorship called limited fiscal sponsorship when a funder is requiring that an organization have a 501c3 designation. So many of the organizations that come to us don't have it, haven't applied for it. It's not necessary, as a matter of fact, because we expect that all organizations that come to us who have a 501c3 status, that they put it into a dormant phase. They're looking for an organization to be able to accept funds on their behalf, who is already an established legal entity or who may not be eligible to accept the kind of funds that they are seeking. So, for example, there are some states that require that the recipients of their grant funds or a contract be registered as a certain type of provider or an eligible recipient. And so this Model C allows that organization through TSNE, if we are eligible, to accept those funds on their behalf. I want to emphasize that at TSNE, this is very rare, the Model C. This is not the same as an organization who wants to join as a Model A, but wants to opt out of certain services like HR, who wants to opt out of legal. We don't offer that at a discounted rate or at a different rate. This is really for those organizations who are already financially and legally separate entities, but who just cannot accept funds from the particular funder that we're talking about. let's see here, 1 second here. So the main differences between a Model C and a Model A is under a Model C, you get to keep your separate legal entity. If you're a 501c3, you keep that. If you're registered as a certain type of nonprofit organization doing business in a certain place, you keep that. You receive funds in a grantor-grantee relationship from TSNE. TSNE is actually the recipient of those funds, not your organization. We accept them on your behalf and make decisions on your behalf on how those funds are spent. And you would provide financial reports and statements to TSNE in terms of anything that needs to be sent out to the funder. You do not receive legal services under Model C. You do not receive human resources services or benefits, and you do not have access to the full suite of accounting services.
All right, so thank you so much for that. So just to sort of recap some of that and put a gloss on sort of why you might want to consider fiscal sponsorship with TSNE. One of the perks is our professional expertise. We have a professional and committed staff, which provides a seamless suite of back office administrative supports, which allows you to focus on your programming and to achieve your mission. Through our sort of integrated administrative support, we have a team-based approach to fiscal sponsorship, which provides your organization with integrated finance, human resources, and legal supports. Now, as far as the cost, the fee is initially 14% of your expenses. After the first year, we evaluate the cost of supporting your organization and adjust the fee if required. However, it won't climb above that initial 14%, but it also won't fall below 10%. Our economies of scale allow us to offer your staff a host of benefits from health insurance to retirement, which helps create an environment centering the well-being of your staff. Now, of course, one of the perks of fiscal sponsorship is that you get to use our 501c3 tax status, which allows you to efficiently solicit financial support from a diverse array of funders and donors, while our services ensure that those funds are managed responsibly. Now, as an aside, we also offer additional capacity building services and affordable office and meeting space, which are separate services that we offer, but they include consulting and training, which can help leaders strengthen their organizations. And then we also have affordable meeting and office space, provides places for local organizations to work, meet, and gather.
So talking about staff benefits and our economies of scale for a moment. So our Model A, or full service fiscally sponsored organizations, can enjoy the economies of scale that TSNE can provide, particularly in the area of employee benefits. TSNE's human resources approach is values-based and centered on employee well-being, which in turn supports staff retention. So as a high-level overview, your staff working half-time or more are eligible for the following benefits. And most of these are available on their first day of employment, which is great that there's no waiting period for that. So health insurance right now is offered through Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, and TSNE contributes 80% of the premium. That's available on your first day of employment. Dental and vision insurance currently is provided by Guardian, also effective on your first day of employment, and TSNE contributes 75% of the premium. Life insurance through Mutual of Omaha. And this is at no cost to your employee, and your employees are eligible for 200% of their annual base salary, also effective the first day of the month after 30 days of employment. And long-term disability, also offered by Mutual of Omaha, is effective the first day of the month after 30 days of employment. Hopefully you don't have to use those last two benefits ever, but it's always nice to know that we have them. Additionally, other benefits include generous vacation time, personal time, sick time, and bereavement time. We also provide short-term disability, commuter benefits, a retirement annuity, and pre-tax dependent care spending accounts and healthcare spending accounts. So we offer a lot to our employees. So other perks of fiscal sponsorship with TSNE. So we have and can make available to you professionally managed meeting space at the Nonprofit Center, which is located in downtown Boston. How we charge our fee, we apply our billing on expenses, not revenue. Another benefit is that fiscal sponsorship in general is able to offer you a lower fringe rate for the level of benefits that you receive. We have staff with professional expertise and a variety of lived experiences. And finally, TSNE's mission is to strengthen organizations working towards a just and equitable society. So a lot going on there in terms of perks of fiscal sponsorship with us.
So is TSNE for you? Our application process for new or incoming fiscally sponsored organizations takes about 3 to 6 months. Next is the TSNE's 501c3 status can only be used while you're with TSNE. So in other words, if you come into TSNE as a already registered 501c3 organization, you can no longer use that status in gathering any funds, in basically anything that you do. So for the time being that you're with TSNE, that 501c3 status has to go dark and can't be used, and only TSNE's 501c3 status can be used. And that's not our rule, that is an IRC rule, so the Internal Revenue Code that states that only one 501c3 status at a time can be used. And lastly, just to reiterate what Lori had said earlier, TSNE currently does not accept any concept fiscally sponsored organizations at the moment. And then if you were to come on as an FSO at TSNE, there are a few expectations that we have for all our FSOs. First is you'd be required to move your fiscal year to July, June, which is our fiscal year, so July 1st to June 30th. Secondly, you'd have to follow all TSNE fiduciary regulatory compliance, as well as any of our internal policies and procedures. So example of that would be our employee handbook, which states a good amount of all of our policies that apply to employees across the board. And lastly, we would ask that all our FSOs incoming have a basic understanding of nonprofit financial reporting.
All right, so now for the remainder of the presentation, we wanted to go into some detail about what the application and review process looks like if you want to apply to be fiscally sponsored. So as was mentioned before, the entire process of review from when you initially submit your application up to ultimately if it goes before TSNE's board for a final vote, that can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months. During that process, there are sort of multiple stages of internal review. And at any point during that process, your organization can be given a green light to move forward to the next stage of review. It can be given a yellow light, which means that we'll reach back out to you for more information. Or it can be a red light, which means that the application has been denied. If it's given a yellow light at any point and we reach out to you for more information, that's totally normal. That doesn't necessarily mean that anything is wrong. It's just sort of like an ongoing conversation that we have as we review your application. So if you want to apply to be fiscally sponsored, the very first thing that you will do is submit an inquiry form at tsne.org. And then after we review your inquiry, we'll send you a link to a screening survey, which will help determine if you're eligible to apply for fiscal sponsorship. If that screening survey determines that you may be eligible, we'll invite you to schedule an intake call with a member of the client intake team. So that would be either Jocelyn or Mart, the client intake manager, or myself. So we'll have that call with you via Microsoft Teams. During that call, we'll ask you more questions about your organization and programming. And this is also a chance for you to ask us any questions that'll help you determine if TSNE is a good fit for you. Finally, if you are eligible to apply, we'll send you a link to our online application after that call. So the application contains about 100 questions. However, you can save your progress and continue later. And just to be clear, all of the questions on the application are mandatory for your application to be considered. That being said, feel free to reach out to us at the info@tsne.org email address if you have any questions as you're filling out your application. And as you're filling out the application, you'll be asked to upload several files, which include an organizational budget, a development plan, an organizational chart, and an advisory board list. So next, your application, once you submit it, will move into an initial stage of review. So first, it's reviewed by the client intake team, during which process we may reach out for additional information. Then afterwards, it's discussed by our internal review committee. And that review committee will be looking at the completeness of your application, working to determine if there's appropriate mission fit with TSNE, as well as what types and levels of support the organization needs and whether we currently have the capacity to meet them. That review committee will also identify additional areas where they have questions. So next, we will invite you to meet with our internal review committee, and we'll send you a list of our questions ahead of time. You don't need to send back written responses, but just so you have an idea of what we're going to ask you. And we also welcome you to ask any and all questions that you may have of us, for example, to clarify our expectations, expand on how we do business, or anything else that you're wondering about. For that meeting, please feel free to invite anyone from your organization or board that you would like to be present. We'd really love to meet the team that we would be working most closely with if you were to become fiscally sponsored. So please feel free to bring the team along. So after that, your application would go into the final stages of internal review. So the review committee would make a recommendation about your eligibility. If they give you a green light, your application would go before TSNE's CEO. And if the CEO gives you a green light, your application would go before TSNE's board of directors for a final vote. And just to reiterate, we may have to request additional information at any point in the process, or we may have to decline your application at any point in the process. All right, so just to go over some helpful hints for completing your application, I will pass it to Christine for the first one.
So thank you. Please provide detail on your application about how you use any independent contractors. Knowing how employees are classified is important for us to understand your organizational structure.
All right, and when you're filling out your application, when you describe your primary everyday programming and services, the more detail that you can give us, the better. So for example, if your programming has to do with combating homelessness, the level of information that would be really helpful would be sort of, how are you doing that? Are you running monthly meetings with other nonprofits, running workshops, working with youth on advocacy around public housing initiatives? Just as examples, just that sort of level of detail about your programming is really helpful for us to have. I'll pass it to Lori for the next one.
A budget is also required. We ask that you provide a budget that contains 2 to 3 years of projections, if possible. And we are able to provide you with a sample template with when you are completing your application. So just to give you a sense of different categories of expense and revenue that we'd be looking at. Next is Owen again.
Yes. So when we send you the application, we'll send you a link to the online form, but we're also going to send you a PDF of the application. Reviewing that PDF before opening the form can help you prepare your responses. And then once you're in the form, you'll have a save button to save your progress, and it's always worth saving often. And I'll pass it to Sam for the last one.
And there's no deadline to submit your application. We only ask that the sooner you submit it, the sooner we can review it, and that we take all applications on a rolling basis.
All right, so now we have some frequently asked questions that we just sort of wanted to go over. We'll get to your questions in the chat as well, but just to sort of give you some insight about things that we get asked frequently.
So we're often asked, how frequently can we expect to interact with the TSNE team? And I mentioned before the FSO team, which is comprised of grants and finance managers, an HR person, legal representatives, and also an FS accountant. And in terms of financial review, you could expect to meet with the grants and finance managers and the FS accountants at least on a monthly basis. And we really, when you first join the organization, we try to kind of assess where you are in terms of financial literacy. We said before that we do require some financial literacy, but there is some getting used to TSNE's systems, our financial system, and other systems that we use that speak to it. So we would expect to have more frequent communications with you earlier. And then as time goes on, we would rely more on a monthly schedule. The full team meets with all of you. You can invite other members of your organization and even a board member or two to our FSO team meetings, which are held twice a year. Who's responsible for reporting? So the grants and finance manager usually takes the lead on financial reports, but there's this give and take with the FSO project director or whoever's responsible for reporting on your side. And usually there's an approval that goes on. So either the finance manager will approve and you will send out the report, or we will prepare the report and you will approve it before it goes out. And then usually the FSO, in your case, you would take the lead on any narrative reports, performance reports. Can we sign up for some fiscal sponsorship services, but not all? I mentioned this earlier around Model A. And so Model A is you're basically getting all of the services that we've described. It's not a pick and choose a la carte kind of a program. Yes, you will get the full suite of services and must basically adhere to that. Does TSNE offer financial supports to FSOs? And by this, we mean, do we help provide funds, startup funds, or kind of ongoing funds to FSOs? And we do not. We expect that your organization will seek out the financial supports that you need, and we are there to kind of manage those funds as they are received. Is it possible to switch from a Model A to Model C? So typically, it's not very common to have a Model C, first of all. There could be instances where a Model A organization gets their 501c3 status. They decide they're going to spin up on their own, and there's one type of funding that might not apply to that organization that they can only accept through TSNE. So I do see situations where that would be the case. I would say that switching from a Model C to Model A is very uncommon. It's not that we would rule it out, but we'd handle that on a case-by-case basis.
And lastly, can TSNE help me think through which model of fiscal sponsorship would be right for me? And the answer is no. TSNE is not in the position to provide any legal aid or legal advice, so we would not be able to advise you on that matter. However, we could point you in the right direction so that you could get the help that you needed.
All right, so thank you to my co-presenters, and thank you to all of the audience. So now we would like to turn it over to the question and answer for the questions that you've been submitting in the chat. So at this point, I will invite Michael and Jocelyn to come on and start asking us some of the questions that have been submitted.
Thanks so much, Owen. So we have about 3 questions that are asking for a little bit of clarification for the fee structures. The first one being, what is the fee structure for Model C? Is it 14% of the expenses related to the funds that TSNE collects? And I'm not sure which member of the team would love to, pick this on, but.
So 14%, the 14% fee is for Model A, and it is based on the it is a percentage of the total expenses that are incurred at the time that those expenses are incurred. And so the fee structure for Model C, it's really dependent upon how complicated the grants are that we might be accepting, or the donations, and we would assess that at the time once we knew what we were accepting in terms of funds on your behalf. It is also, I just wanted to throw in one other thing about the 14%. As you go out there and might be evaluating other fiscal sponsorship programs, it's important to note that we are one of the few that base our fee on expenses. A lot of other organizations base it on revenue, and it's a lower amount. And the reason being is because if you were to accept like a $100,000 grant, they would take a percentage off the top. What we do is we're like, as you spend that grant, we would take a percentage, which is a high percentage, but it's spread out over a longer period of time. Usually it's spread out based on the length of time it takes you to spend down those funds. So it's a different model. And so that you should think about that when you're considering different options.
Thanks so much, Lori. So I'm going to be moving on to the next question I see here on the Q&A. So going on Model C, it says, does the FSO in Model C keep all legal risk?
The short answer is yes, as your organization would still be the organization of record and you would be a legal organization. But in terms of the financial risk, TSNE would bear some burden there, as we would be the steward of those funds. So it's not 100% the legal risk, but it would be dependent on whatever the relationship is between TSNE and your organization.
Thank you so much. And we got another question asking to explain a little bit more about, for Model A, the 14%. Stating, can this be explained more? Is there an equation such as the organization would pay 14% of expenses and 28% of salaries for full-time employees, or what? How does that work?
Right. So we're talking about two different things here. So I think the 28% that you're referring to is the fringe rate, which any organization, if you were to do these services on your own, you would incur these expenses. It's the same expenses for us. You're basically paying for the cost of us to provide health insurance benefits, retirement benefits, and the administration that is involved in all of that. Workers' comp is another example. So anyway, that's what the 28% is. The 14% is the administrative fee. So if you're familiar with indirect costs, it's similar to indirect costs. It's basically covering the cost of administration. Legal services are typical. These are the administrative costs. Legal, it is HR, general administration, it is the finance and accounting function. It's all of those aspects of your work that is cannot be directly charged to your particular funder.
Thanks so much. So the next question I have here are, what states are we not registered to do work in? And are any of those states in New England?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head which states we're not registered in. We are registered in all New England, in all states of New England.
Great, thank you so much. One is asking about mission alignment. What kind of mission alignment is required in order for TSNE to accept a sponsored organization?
I can take that if you want. Both of us, we can share this one. We do strive to have mission alignment. So when an organization comes to us, one of the first questions in the application is, what is your mission? And we clearly state what ours is, so that there is an expectation that there'll be some alignment. And what might affect whether an organization is accepted or not is really kind of down more into the weeds of what they're doing, and Sam could kind of talk a little bit about that around advocacy, lobbying, and all of that. But Sam, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's much to add on the mission alignment aspect of it, but yes, we do take other things into consideration on top of mission alignment, as Lori was alluding to. So, the level of advocacy being done and what type of advocacy is being done, that still aligns with our mission. So every decision that we're making as we review an application or an organization, mission alignment is front and center and is taken into account with as we read every question.
Great, thank you. So another question that came in is there a limit to the number of sponsored organizations that TSNE is able to support in a given year?
I can take that. As we accept organizations that meet all the criteria and pass through, even before we interview people, we're taking into account what our current portfolio is and how available each member of our team would be to take on additional work. So that consideration is happening before we even do kind of a push or put an announcement out that, we're accepting applications at this point. So yes, there is a limit based on what we currently have in terms of staff, but if we're bringing on the right number, if we're growing at a reasonable pace, there is no reason why that at some point in time we won't be accepting more and be able to hire more people to support that. So that's so it's really limited by our staff availability and access to staff time.
Thank you so much. And the next question that came in is, what accounting system do you use? And would you be required to follow or use this?
Sure, I can take that too. We use a pretty robust, commonly used system for nonprofit organizations, which is a Sage product. It's called Sage Intact. And yes, all of our Model A fiscally sponsored organizations all of your information is passed through our financial system. That we are fiduciarily responsible for everything to do with your finances. So therefore, it all passes through our system. And what we're really proud of late in the last year or so is we've been able to roll out dashboards. So we're providing our FSOs with the ability to see their financials in more of a kind of a live environment at any point that they want to see it. They have access to that information and any of the data that's currently in our system. So yes, the answer is yes.
Okay, great. Oh, okay, we just got a question that came in that says we collect some funds through PayPal for events. How would that be handled? So like not just PayPal, we can talk about different PayPal.
Yeah, third-party revenue collection platforms. Yes, we do. We do offer through our accounting, we're able to log in and get all of that information and arrange for those funds to be transferred directly to TSNE. So yes, and right now we probably have like 3 or 4 different platforms that we use. So yes.
Excellent. I'm not seeing any more questions that are coming in. We'll give it about another 2 minutes for more questions. And if not, we are coming up on time. And we do want to, respect everyone's time and be able to, and ending early would also be great. So we'll give a last call for any questions. Again, please put them in the question and answer. We are not taking questions in any other format. So definitely take some time and put that down. And we did have one last question that we are going to answer here, which is, if you are an FSO, are you allowed to offer to cover a higher percentage of benefits, paying more, or do you have to agree to keep it at 80% so all TSNE covered employees are the same?
I will take that one. That's an interesting question. We have not been asked specifically that. Our benefits generally, a number of factors go into it, but when we go out to bid and try and get the best prices for the best coverage, we're not taking into account the possibility of others paying more. However, as fiscally sponsored organizations have specific needs, we will definitely have a conversation if there's something you'd like to offer that we don't currently offer, and that's handled on an individual case-by-case basis.
Great, thank you so much. I'm going to hand it back to Owen.
All right. Well, I just wanted to say thank you again to all of the participants for coming out and learning about fiscal sponsorship with TSNE and for asking us such great questions. We really appreciate your time. Just to end, I wanted to show you all, this is a list of other services that we offer. If you're interested in any of them, you can reach us at tsne.org. We are also accepting applications now for fiscal sponsorship, so please feel free to submit an inquiry form if you're interested in fiscal sponsorship as well. And we'll look forward to being in touch with you in the future. So thank you again, and please feel free to reach out to us anytime at info@tsne.org.